Well, great. It's 11:30, and I like to start on time just because we have a lot of information. We have 30 minutes, and so that makes our time crunch just that much more critical. And so I want to just welcome everyone. I can't believe it, but this is actually our fifth topic that we've done this year so far on reinventing childcare. And so we've already talked about reinventing your mindset, reinventing your day, reinventing your culture, reinventing your marketing strategies, and now today we're going to be talking about reinventing your leadership. And it's something that I am very passionate about, and building up strong leaders and looking at yourself as a leader. We can always be growing. You probably have heard everything in my presentation today. I can't imagine that I have anything that's something new that you haven't heard, but it's a really great refresher as a leader to be able to just remember, hey, I should be paying attention to this. So let's get started. For those who don't know me, I'm Caroline Jens. I'm the founder of Childcare Biz Help, and I've been doing this now for about 3 years. And I've written a book called Profits Childcare Success Formula. If you have not gotten a copy of the book, I would love to send you it. So feel free to email me. I'll have my contact information in the presentation that I'll be sending out to everyone. I would love to send you a free PDF of my book. But I work with childcare centers all over the United States. And it's been a really great journey learning that no matter what state you're in, we all experience pretty similar problems. And we all are very passionate about what we are doing as childcare professionals. And so my joy comes from working with people just like you to find ways to make your job easier, to make your job more enjoyable. And so that's who I am in a nutshell. And there's so much more that we do, but we'll talk about that later. So today's mission is we're going to identify 5 solutions on how to reinvent yourself as a leader and those leaders that you employ. So not only do we want to get better ourselves, but we want to also make those leaders around us get better. So we're going to hopefully touch on how to do both of those. If you have questions as we go through the presentation, feel free to put it in chat, and I'll try to keep looking down and make sure if I see anything. Otherwise, I will open up questions at the end of the training. And so I'd like to start off, I found this quote and I thought it was really fitting for today. Leadership is the ability to facilitate movement in the needed direction and having people feel good about it. And so I just kind of want to break this down real quick, because there's 2 things that are really important here. Well, 3 actually. You know, it's one thing being able to lead, but getting people to act, that's something very different. So that's the movement piece. Then in the needed direction. So you might get people to act, but they might not be acting in alignment with what you want as a leader. And then finally, having people feel good about it. It does me no good to be a leader, having people act, even if it's in alignment with the vision, if they don't feel good about it. Because when people really grab hold of what you believe in as a leader, it's going to make being a leader so much easier, because they're going to have buy-in, they're going to believe it, they're going to think it's authentic. And when that happens, when you get all of that moving together, that's when you really see change in your company. And I know that sounds like a lot of moving parts, but when you break it down into those 3 little sections, being able to facilitate movement so people act, making sure they act in the direction that you want them to go, and then making sure that they love doing it. And so hopefully by the end of this presentation, you're going to be able to do those 3 things. And so I always love, before I start training, kind of identifying some of the problems that we go through in regards to the topic. So we're talking about reinventing leadership. So as a leader, I know personally when I ran centers, I struggled with a lot of things. And I would imagine that you probably struggle with similar ones that I did. And so I have a couple here that I laid out. Obviously, it's not everything because, man, our list could be like 20 pages long of the problems that we run into as leaders. But we'll just identify a couple today. So some of the problems that we have as leaders are when employees are not invested in their work. And when that happens, they become sloppy. They're kind of lifeless. They call in all the time. They're just kind of going through those motions. And the work that they produce, again, it's not up to their full potential. Another one is where you have to do too much hand-holding because either people don't want to make decisions on their own, or they don't feel comfortable making those decisions because maybe you haven't made it that kind of safe environment where they can make decisions and they can make mistakes. And we're going to talk about that a little more. Maybe they have tunnel vision. So this could be yourself, this could be your team. You know, oftentimes if we can become very exhausted. Let's talk about a buzz topic right now, recruitment. It can be exhausting. You might have tunnel vision because all you feel like you're doing is trying to recruit teachers right now. And so that tunnel vision is going to hinder your ability to perform in other areas as a leader, just because the need is so great right now to get the right people on our teams. We can often just get really stuck in that one problem that we have and fail to see the other good things that are going on around us and the other opportunities that we might have as a child care center. Maybe you're struggling to find consistency and momentum in your leaders. And so, you know, it's one thing to get people excited one day and then the next day they just kind of fall off the bandwagon. And so how do you get that consistency in your team so that it's not so hard, so you're not always pushing? And then maybe you feel a little stagnant, or again, like you're having to pull or push employees to do things, to work harder, to be happy, to engage, to follow in your footsteps. So all of those problems really cause barriers in our ability and our team's ability to lead. And so this inability to create traction in our team. So I like to use the word traction. It's a really great book, but also when we relate it to our leadership, when we have that inability to create traction in our team because of these various problems, it can be extremely difficult to build a culture of creativity, a culture of ownership, one of accountability where people want to be accountable, they're excited about accountability, and then one where no excuses are tolerated. A lot of times I work with people, and I know you feel the same, where it's literally one excuse after the other. But we need to be able to create environments that have enough momentum and enough traction in place where people aren't wanting to give excuses and you're actually able to move your organization forward. So those are some of the problems that we're going to talk about, some solutions that we can take your company to the next level. Because remember, it's about reinventing childcare. And so it's taking what we are already doing, but learning how to amplify it, maybe adjusting it slightly so that we can be better at what we do. Because we're all really great at what we do, we just sometimes need that additional push or that little 2mm shift. So we're going to talk about 5 steps. These are 5 solutions. And again, they're not rocket science, but I really feel they're very fitting. And so the desire for others to shine, to focus on giving and receiving feedback. The third is ownership and authenticity. The fourth is willingness to take risks. And then the fifth, which, oops, sorry everybody. The fifth, which is my favorite, is the thread of joy. And so those are the 5 steps that we're going to talk about today. And we have about 20 minutes left, and we're going to be able to dive into each one individually. And so the desire for others to shine. So as leaders, we must have it ingrained in us that our job, again, based on that quote at the beginning, our job is to facilitate movement that's in alignment with our company vision. A great way to do this is to be invested in our employees. We have to realize that when we help our employees or help our coworkers develop to be the best version of themselves, they'll want to be the best that they can for the company. So it's a win-win situation when you make someone feel like they have talents that no one else has, that you want them to use those talents, that you want them to grow with your company, that you want their personal life to be in order so that they can be successful in their career life. So that's that desire to want others to shine. And so looking at yourself, because it's not just a mindset that we want to have on the people that are leading in our organization, but looking at ourselves personally, asking ourselves, what specifically is holding me back as a leader? You know, am I desiring to be the best that I can be? And so I'm going to share two personal stories with you today because I was on a really impactful retreat in South Dakota a couple weeks ago, and it was life-changing. We went climbing some small mountains and hills, and we were out in the wilderness. And when you're in that kind of environment, you're really able to unplug, which I needed, and tap into some inner thoughts that normally my life is too crazy that I don't hear. And so I'm just going to, be a little transparent in our conversations today on two stories, but specifically on this wanting to be a better you. In order to quit limiting myself as a person, as a leader, as someone in ministry, as a wife, as a friend, I had to be honest with myself about what was holding me back. And so to be really effective, I had to actually get to the root of why I was putting certain barriers in my life. And for me, that was, or is, or was, I'll get more into that. But for me, it was about abandonment and rejection. Yeah, I had a lot of things go on in my childhood, and that caused a lot of abandonment and rejection issues in my life. So that was the root cause as to why I was putting certain barriers up in my life. And so, how does that translate to leadership? Well, think about when you have a fear of abandonment or rejection, you're going to place high expectations on yourself. So I often had extremely high expectations on myself. Well, that would translate to my leadership team. They would see I had high expectations for myself. I ended up placing high expectations on them. And what that did is it caused everyone to just work, and overachieve. Well, that caused a lot of burnout, exhaustion. We failed to celebrate wins. So I really had to ask myself, how did the root cause as to why I was placing these high expectations on my life, how did that affect the people around me? And what do I need to do as a leader to maybe squish those past barriers and those past fears? And how do I change my leadership style so that I'm not placing those high expectations on everybody? And so that's just one way to look deep down inside, not only in the team around you to make them to shine, but looking at yourself. How can you personally shine? And how can you quit holding yourself back? So that's really step one. So step two is to focus on giving and receiving feedback. If I were to ask one thing to myself that I could focus on in order to move culture forward, so if I think about the days back when my center culture was horrific, it was horrific. If I were to ask myself back then, what's the one thing I could focus on? I would say getting feedback. And so not only for me to get feedback, but also for my leaders to get feedback, and to not only get feedback, but give it. And honestly, feedback is a scary thing, and a lot of us are very afraid of it because we don't necessarily like the answer all the time. And we often fail because we get feedback and we don't act on it. So we'll talk about that. So I want to encourage you to not only ask for feedback on a weekly basis, but act on that feedback. So if you're the one asking but not acting, employees are going to quit taking your questions seriously, right? So if I'm constantly surveying, asking for people's opinions, but we never do anything to fix the criticisms that they may give you feedback on, then it's going to lose momentum, and it's really not going to make any sense for you to even ask, because you're just going to create ruckus in your center, and people are going to be like, oh yeah, she's asking again for feedback, but she's not going to do anything about it. And remember, it's not that you're going to do something about everything. You have to take each feedback, you know, at its face value, for sure. But you'll know deep down inside when feedback is true criticism and when it's constructive criticism. And so one way you can hold your team accountable to feedback is ask them weekly to get feedback from their team and specifically come to you with what that feedback was and what their action plan was to resolve it or to respond to it. And remember, not all feedback is negative. So they might have gotten really great feedback, but there's still an action that might need to be done, even with that really great feedback. So if someone says, I really felt great this week because you gave me a lot of really great praise, and because of that, I had a really good week. Well, a way to act on that would be, who else can I do that to? Who else can I make feel that way? So that might be a way to use, if you receive positive criticism, how do you act on that? Spread it out, not just to one employee, but spread it out to multiple. And if you get negative feedback, if someone says, well, you're late with my review, so I'm really disappointed, maybe the act on that would be making sure I'm scheduling that review before the next week is over. Make sure that employee feels valued, that they know, I'm sorry, my schedule got out of control. I have no excuse, but we're going to take care of this next week. So I would hold that standard with your leadership team to come to you on a weekly basis, identifying various feedback that they got and what they're, how they're going to act on it, and hold them accountable to it. Let them know that you expect that from them on a weekly basis. But finally, give feedback. And so just like you can grow from hearing constructive feedback, you can, so can those other people around you. When you're giving feedback, they can grow from it too. And again, we want people to shine. So in order for them to shine, you also have to give constructive feedback. And so take the time to give really solid, positive and negative feedback every week. And again, it's about that investment that you're making in your employees that's going to create momentum for them to act. So just being a leader where people don't act, you're just pretending to be a leader. We want people to be inspired and to act on our leadership. And so I'd like you to just put in the back of your mind, how can you provide a continuous loop of feedback in your organization? How can you create that as part of your culture? And how can you make sure that you personally create that in yourself? The third, ownership and authenticity. So again, empower your team to be owners of their environment. As leaders, we must learn various ways to empower our team so that to own the area they're accountable to. We give people responsibilities. They're accountable to that. Let them own it. Quit taking back the work that you've given them because maybe they're not doing it to your expectations. They're not doing it on your timeline. Don't take back the responsibilities that you gave to other people. You have to be able to manage them, coach them through that so they feel like they're an owner of their space. And when a lot of leaders actually struggle with this, because letting other people, we often don't trust other people to do it up to, our caliber. And so we have a tendency to take it back. Well, this can be really fatal to allowing others to lead. And so also let them be authentic in how they lead. So again, we don't want to try to box them into a specific style of leadership. We want to mentor them, yes. We want to be an example of what a leader should be like and how we should manage our area of responsibility, but we want them to be able to tap into their strengths, right? And let them lead their team in their unique way, as long as it aligns with your company vision and your company culture. So what I do may not be the same that you do, but try to coach through that. Allow people to be authentic to who they are, because it's going to be a much easier fit, and employees will see that it's true and authentic. And then finally, for employees to feel safe, this is really important. Employees need to feel safe in order to create and explore new avenues. And to do that, they have to feel the environment that they're creating in is safe. So hear me on this. When employees feel you have created a safe environment, meaning that whenever they have an idea or they have something new they want to try, you're not immediately squashing that idea. You're not blowing out their flame. You're allowing them to come to you and be creative. That's a safe environment. And when you do that, where imagination is encouraged and creativity is not put down, your employees are going to take an entrepreneurial approach to their work. They're going to see, how can I make my environment better? How can I make it the best? How can I take my authentic leadership style and be the most creative in it? And so again, this is hard to do as a leader, because we want our style to be their style, and that's not always the case. So try to listen when someone comes to you with an idea, or maybe they have a different way of doing something. We'll talk about, probably in the next slide, I think we talk about letting our employees take risks. So that kind of goes along this line. And finally, for ourselves as leaders, don't deceive ourselves. How are we limiting our own creativity? Have we become stagnant and maybe lost the thrill of ownership? And I kind of use that like when you buy a new home or a new car or even a new outfit. I know when I get a new outfit, the first time I wear it, it's like, yeah, I look good. It feels good, it looks good. It hasn't, been through the wash 10 times. So there's that level of just pride that you get from ownership. And so don't lose that thrill of the areas that you have ownership over. And so take it back, take back that domain, fall in love with your space again, fall in love with your team, with the mission of your company. And so use those emotions of new ownership. Think of something new that you've owned. Think of the emotion that you feel, and take that emotion and use that to lead your team. I hope I'm making sense today. 4, we've got 7 minutes. Okay, 4, when an employee is willing to take risks and take charge and own up to their mistakes, they're going to be successful. And so let your employees fail. And I know this is hard, but when an employee tries and they fail, here's something you can try. I read this and I thought this was amazing. Flip every mistake into a win. And so let's say one of your employees has a bad interaction with a parent, and turn that around to them crafting a really great apology or a face-to-face meeting with the parent to rectify the bad experience that they may have given. So take that mistake that maybe occurred because of their inexperience. Maybe they just didn't know how to respond to the parent the right way. And use that as a coaching moment to create a win so that you can you can focus on how they positively resolved that situation and had a really great experience with the family after the fact. So that's one way. Flip every mistake into a win. And another is ask your employees for ideas and solutions when you kick off a new project. So it may not be the best idea, but let them go with it. You may have like the best idea ever, and your employees may want to go a different way. Let them try. You know, as long as it's not fatal to your business, as long as it's not going to get hurt your brand or hurt anyone, let them try it. And if it fails, use that as a coachable moment. But it'll be a win because you let them be creative. You let them have ownership in their environment. And so finally, this is one of my favorites, and that's the thread of joy. And so again, like I mentioned, I went to this retreat, and one of the best presentations we got was on joy and finding a thread of joy in our lives every day. And honestly, when you reinvent leadership, it starts with you. And there's no better place to start than being joyful with who you are and your life. And so I always like to say that we must consider ourselves as part of the problem, but most importantly, we have to look at ourselves as leader as the most critical piece of the solution. And so if we're not joyful people, it's going to come across, we're going to be a big, huge part of the problem in our organization. All the reinventing leadership tactics are going to mean nothing if we don't have joy in our life, because others are going to see we're not really authentic. And so we want to be able to lead and inspire movements where people feel good, remember? And so to do that, we have to be joyful. It doesn't mean everything is rainbows and unicorns and you never have problems in your life, but there's a sense of joy that we can pull from every day, even in the chaos of childcare. I mean, our childcare jobs are high energy, they're exhausting, they're chaotic. And so thinking of finding a thread of joy every day in that kind of environment might be a little difficult, but I know you can because I've been there. And so I just want to ask you this, because this is something we did. When is the last time you had a dance party? Right there with your leadership team. When's the last time you had a dance party by yourself? And take those spontaneous moments. If that's the only thread of joy you're going to have during the day, is that maybe 2 minutes of your personal dance party, then maybe that's what you needed to carry you through the day. So I just want to encourage you, when you find that thread of joy throughout your day that you can be grateful for, it's going to come across in who you are as a leader, and it's going to affect your team greatly. So again, I'm sorry, the slide is completely wrong, but I just want to reiterate the 5 steps. So we're going to desire for others to shine. We're going to focus on giving and receiving feedback. We're going to give ownership and authenticity wherever we can. We're going to have a willingness to take risks, and we're going to look at that thread of joy. So when you incorporate all of these into yourself and as you mentor leaders in your organization, you're going to be able to transform your team positively. Employees are going to become invested. Employees are truly going to care about the company. They're going to want to work harder for you. They're going to want to be nicer to their coworkers. Employees, when they start thinking like an entrepreneur, they're going to take ownership over their environment. You're going to gain momentum and consistency, which will then turn into progress. So if you feel stagnant or like you're not making any headway, you'll gain momentum and consistency when you can focus on these things. And then you'll have a new joy every day when you're focusing on those threads of joy. And so that will help break through the chaos that you're experiencing on a day-to-day basis at your childcare center. And so I always like to give a takeaway. So I have a worksheet that I'll be emailing out to you, and it's something that you can fill out yourself, something that you can have if you've got other leaders underneath you, have them kind of go over this worksheet, and it just is some self-evaluation stuff, and then it allows for a plan to act, kind of, you know, here's here's my self-reflection, and then here's my plan to act on that. And so I encourage you, I'll send this out in an email to spend some time and send this to your team and really think about new ways that you can reinvent your leadership. And so I hope you really enjoyed today's topic. It's been 30 minutes. Our next topic is June 25th, and it's on reinventing your workforce. So I'm excited about that. And, you know, we're just really tired of the whole recruiting, candidates not showing up. So we're going to get into all that good stuff and look at ways to reinvent your workforce. And then this is my team. If you're interested in being, having someone be another you, that's what my team does. We're the experienced childcare people, and we help our clients by becoming whatever they need us to become. We will do anything for them. And so they don't have to do the work on themselves. We will take that workload from them. And then for the first time ever, we're opening up retreats to people other than just our Another You clients. So the Another You Creative Retreat, which is in July 26th, that one is opened up to anyone. There's, I think, only 16 spots. So if you're interested, you have to email me quickly because these fill up fast. The Unplugged Retreat is only for Another You clients, so that one is already sold out. But there's a link to all of our retreats if you want to click that. We have some additional things that we're going to be doing down the road, which I'm excited to announce very soon. But yeah, I hope you guys had a really great experience. Thank you for coming and training with me over lunch, and I hope you guys have an amazing day. I'm going to open it up to questions. I'll wait here. If you have any, feel free to go ahead and message me in chat. Otherwise, look for my email once we get everything downloaded, and I look forward to seeing you guys next month. Bye, guys.